On Friday night, I was walking with a girlfriend, and we were enjoying the beautiful, beautiful evening, breathing, just being together. She had recently spent some time with her father, and I said, so what was that like? And she said, I love my dad. He's just so cool. I was like, oh, nice. He's married. Anything more you want to say about that? No, not really. Oh, okay. Do they enjoy each other? That's always one of my early questions. Do couples enjoy each other? You know, it's one thing to be married. It's one thing to be together, and it's another thing to enjoy that. And she said, well, I don't really know that I would call it that. I said, okay. I said, well, what makes you think that? And she said, well, you know, I was spending time with my dad, and I asked him, like, what's up with this thing, your marriage? And in a few short words, he said, you know, hon, it's cheaper to keep her. And I thought, I know many people that live like that. I mean, you respond that way, but you live like that in some area of your life. I lived that way in some area of my life. It's easier to keep the status quo than to experience the cost of change. At least it seems that way. So, you know, there's this brilliant man. His name is Wayne Dyer. I first heard him speak 22 years ago. And he says, the power of your beliefs to keep you stuck is enormous. The power of your beliefs to keep you stuck is enormous. And I would say the cost of your beliefs that keep you stuck is even greater. You know, you are an expression, you are an outpicturing of a realm of beliefs. Your physicality is an outpicturing of a realm of beliefs. Your circumstances and conditions are an outpicturing of a realm of beliefs. Some of them you've consciously asserted, many of them you've inherited through conversations you found yourself in, and through biology that no one took responsibility for shifting. Let that sit for a moment. Biology that no one took responsibility for shifting. That's not a blame or a shame. That's just a what's so. Your biology becomes what you think about. Ernest Holmes says, every person is some part of the infinite, whether or not they know or believe it. But we hypnotize ourselves into thinking we are incomplete and imperfect. Every person is some part of the infinite, whether or not they know or believe it, but we hypnotize ourselves into thinking we are incomplete and imperfect. To that you might hear, you don't know my boss. You don't know my mother-in-law. You don't know my child. Something's definitely not right there. And to that, I would say, it is done unto you as you believe. Now, that does not mean you need to be in relationship with all people, places, and things that are not of high and holy service to who you are becoming. But how you hold a thing is who and what it becomes. So, what do you want to be called? Who do you want to be? And by the way, who says that? Do you get to say who you are, or are you at the effect of someone else's narrative about you? So let me give you a couple of subtle examples of this. We had a community member say to us recently, you know, you oftentimes say here, you guys. Sort of like that. I'm like, well, this is Chicago. And they said, but I mean, like, do you hear what I'm saying? Like, everything is you guys. And I was like, yeah. And they said, but I'm not a guy. Why do you always say you guys? And you have that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, are we really now breaking down guys? Like, I'm from here, you guys. And they were like, no, but really just think about it for a second. Deep breath. Because the cynicism, the irritation, the agitation, oh my gosh. And Rainbow said, I'm from Atlanta, and nobody says, you guys. Everybody says, y'all. So when I moved to Chicago, and everybody was calling me a guy, it was like weird. And this individual said, I'm just saying, I would prefer if you not call me you guys. And I was like, okay, now the question becomes, am I more interested in what I think you should be called, or am I willing to be open and curious and honor what you want to be called? So I was on Twitter last night, and someone was speaking of our present landscape, and they said something about this lame something or other. And someone responded and said, I really appreciate what you're saying, but I wonder if you could use a different word choice and not use ableist slur. And I was like, damn, people are on it. And I sat with it. And again, you hear the cynicism. You hear the, ugh, or at least I do. And then again, I ask myself, if I am someone who is committed to being a midwife for change, if I am someone who's committed to being open and curious about the experience of that which is the God body before me, then would I be willing to lay down my resignation, my cynicism, my apathy, and honor the beloved before me? We are in the process of setting up infrastructure here so that we can have regular signing. And we've been in conversation with one of our community members about what it would take to accommodate regular sign language. And in an effort to be incredibly sensitive and thoughtful, we asked her, what would it require for us to serve the hearing impaired community? To which she said, we would prefer deaf. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, it's like there's like an effort to try to be polite, but actually we're all right with being deaf. It's not a problem. It's not an impairment. It's just a what so. And I was like, all right. Well, how could we accommodate deaf people? Now, these might sound like silly little explorations, but for a body of people and a philosophy that is all about the precision of the word and how your thoughts organize your speaking, you might take this on as a way of being deeply curious and intentional about the words that come out of your mouth, rather than getting cynical. Real easy to choose cynicism. So my intention is that we lift the veil of resignation and apathy, that we resist the seduction of hysteria, because you could be on Twitter and hear ableist slur and be like, ah! There's so much hysteria in this space right now. A change midwife is someone who can hold the high watch in the midst of the hysteria. Can you imagine if someone was in the birthing process and the midwife couldn't keep it together? That would be very inconvenient. Can you imagine that as a person is going through the laboring experience, the midwife has a meltdown? That would not work. So consider that the evolution of humanity is in a laboring state. And the role of places and people that are attracted to communities like Bodhi Spiritual Center are to be change midwives, not to be seduced by the hysteria of the laboring state, but to be able to hold a calm and high presence in the midst of it. As I've said many times before, the last 3 centimeters of dilation are the darkest in a period of labor. They are also the shortest. But don't tell a person who's in the last 3 centimeters of labor that they could relax because it's short. Might get smacked. The midwife is there to hold the space. So this theme this month is about us taking on being change midwives, being the ones that tend to the laboring state of humanity and affirm that a high and holy idea is coming forward. And that the circumstances and conditions that can look messy or ugly are in service of something greater. Now, of course, that is not an opportunity to excuse poor behavior, but it can provide a little bit of context. There was a guy named James Allen. He said, "We do not attract that which we want. We attract that which we are." So if you are hysterical, you will attract a hysterical life. If you are someone that can hold a high idea in the midst of hysteria, you have exercised a level of spiritual maturation that can move mountains. You do not attract that which you desire. You attract that which you are. You attract that which you are. If you are resonating at a vibratory frequency of doom and gloom, guess what's going to be highly attracted to you? More doom and gloom. If you are resonating at a vibrational frequency that says there is a power that is stirring in me that can do all things, you will attract a conversation that is a resonant match for that. You choose. You choose. You know, we have inherited so many narratives about ourselves, about others, about this place and space that we find ourselves in, and it can seem like that's just the way it is. You know, government, that's just the way it is. The police, that's just the way it is. My brother-in-law, that's just the way it is. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That, right, my friends, is lazy thinking. That is not taking responsibility for the world you wish to live in. That is not taking responsibility for the relationships you choose to have. Using the excuse of genetic programming not to do anything about the personal characteristics that you dislike is popular and clearly acceptable in today's culture. Embark on a deprogramming effort that allows you to live an excuse-free life. A deprogramming effort. Last night I was at a Taste of Bodhi party. It was an oversold Taste of Bodhi party. Thank you, Bonnie Schultz, Pat Levy, for hosting a ridiculous event. And it was this Sunday dinner club that the owners and the creators of Honey Butter Fried Chicken put on. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. And by the way, I just want to say, Pat and Bonnie gave everybody a goodie bag of fried chicken. So anyway, the owner and the executive chef of Honey Butter Fried Chicken and Sunday Dinner Club came out, and he just kept talking about how great his spot was. And I was like, look, I really want to be like, look, dude, this is a Taste of Bodhi event. Chill, you know, like, what is going on with you? And I was like feeling it in me. I was like, he just kept talking about his spot. And I was like, Lola, take a breath. What are you making that mean? The mind was saying there's not enough. There's not enough place and space and attention for honey butter fried chicken to get theirs and Bodhi Spiritual Center to get its good. Now you might be like, are these the things you think about? And I would venture to say they're the things you're thinking about also. I'm just highly honest and authentic. So, what then becomes my responsibility? I have to sit there and watch all of my reactivity that's just happening over here on planet Lola. Like, I could feel myself getting scared. And it was like, wow, take a breath. Take a breath. In that moment, what's happening is a dualistic construct. Either honey butter fried chicken can get their time, or Bodhi Spiritual Center can get its time. Imagine a world where both could exist. The absence of unitive consciousness, of a both and context for living, is what has created the hysteria that we're on and in right now. I was talking to one of our welcome team leaders this morning, so brilliant, and he was saying, you know, he struggles sometimes with friends who have a different perspective than he. And I was saying, I get it. And what we agreed on is, when I can locate myself and say, what is this one afraid of that's having them orient their worldview in this way, then I can have an access to compassion. But when I just make a difference of opinion the other, very little becomes possible. Midwifing Change is the one who can hold the high idea in the midst of upset. Midwifing Change means taking responsibility for your triggered reactive state in the midst of a breakdown. There are breakdowns happening in our lives every moment, and the odds of them ever going away are slim to none. So get comfortable being in the breakdown, because your capacity to change, to midwife change, becomes infinitely more possible. So there is a time of great confusion that I believe we're living in. And I do believe that we are living in a confused time to birth a new paradigm. So I'm not eternally worried, and who will I be in the midst of the confusion? I want to share with you a meditation for peace. And I want to ask you to consider this meditation for peace on a daily basis as you move throughout the world, particularly this month. This might be something you choose to practice with, to play with. The peace of God is the center of my being. I am conscious of this peace. I am surrounded by this peace. This peace moves out from me in all directions. It calms the troubled waters of my experience. There is nothing but peace. I rejoice in this peace. I permit this peace to enter my soul, to fill me with calm, to inspire me with confidence. I know that this peace goes before me and makes perfect, plain, and straight my way. Can you imagine if that was your go-to adaptation in a moment of confusion or chaos or hysteria? Something new would be possible. If you and I were not in the seduction of fear and walking in a triggered reactive state, and or if we could continue to awaken our capacity to a new way of being, we could shift the conditions of the world based on a shift in consciousness. See, everything that is happening in the manifest realm, everything that is happening in the world of form, whether it is your personal finances, whether it is your relationship breakdown, whether it is your relationship with your parents or your boss or your job, your dissatisfied career, is an out-picturing of cheaper to keeper. That's all it is. And when we begin to take responsibility for our mental awareness, we can be a powerful presence for change on the planet. So I wonder if you would feel called, if it's authentic to you, to speak this meditation with me. Take a deep breath. The peace of God is at the center of my being. I am conscious of this peace. I am surrounded by this peace. This peace moves out from me in all directions. It calms the troubled waters of my experience. There is nothing but peace. I rejoice in this peace. I permit this peace to enter my soul, to fill me with calm, to inspire me with confidence. I know that this peace goes before me and makes perfect, plain, and straight my way. Do you know the feeling of when you're in a triggered reactive state? You don't have capacity for much. To create community around you that can remind you when you've forgotten is essential. You know, last night, when I was feeling scared, I can bring my attention to my breath. I have the facility to notice fear is in my physical body, in my body temple. I have enough place and space to choose if I want to indulge the fear or if I want to be a different possibility, the possibility of and. Every state of consciousness on the planet right now, no matter how much we dislike it, the capacity for peace lives where that place is. If we write people off, if we write places and spaces off, we are no different. The change midwives have the capacity to sit in the midst of the mess and not become the mess. So I will close with this. You are fundamentally a mental being. You can think yourself into being unhappy and depressed, or you can think yourself into being glad. Did it ever occur to you that you can also think yourself into being well, being prosperous, that you can think yourself into success, that you must become the master of your own thinking? That is not something that we always want to do. You must become the master of your own thinking. This is the only way you will realize freedom and joy. Therefore, you will have to turn your thoughts away from lack, want, and limitation and let them dwell on good. Make yourself do this. Learn to think about what you wish to become. You are a thinking center in life, and the chief characteristic of the law of life is that it responds to thought. Your slightest thought sets up a vibration in it, sets its creative intelligence in motion, and causes it to create circumstances for you which will respond to your thought. Please, I would like you not to call me you guys. Real simple request. Where'd you go? That's the kind of discipline that the mind requires to live the life you desire. If we get triggered and reactive by someone's simple request for how they wish to be addressed, how in the world will we create a world of peace? Please, I would just prefer not to call me you guys. Ugh. Take a breath. I notice on planet Lola, I'm feeling defensive. I notice on planet Lola, I'm judging myself for doing something wrong. I'm noticing on planet Lola that you're trying to dominate me. and on and on and on, when we can begin to become keenly aware of our automatic triggered reactive state in any moment, freedom is right there. So I'm like, we might never ever hear you guys again at Bodhi Spiritual Center. I don't know. But it's just a practice. And when you fall down, you can be graceful and get back up. When someone says, my preferred pronouns are they, them, their, and you want to argue about the grammatics of that, take a breath. The choice is not yours. Might you be willing to be open and curious? Might you be willing to consider unity instead of duality? The easy road is to go into either or thinking. Anybody can do that. That's not what you're here for. So Bodhi, I appreciate you for being midwives of and for change, for being a body of people that are willing to practice holding the high watch in the midst of hysteria. That's what we're here for. Peace and many blessings. All right.